Excellency, pleasure to have you here as the first democratically elected women leader in Africa, and as an advocate for women and youth. You are, I think, perfectly placed to address some of the challenges which are at the heart of what the School of Transnational Governance at the European University Institute is trying to do. And we're here today because you will deliver the inaugural distinguished Giorgio Pira lecture, which is very much about bridging continents. So I would like to start off with this question: what does building bridges between Africa and Europe mean to you?
Today's world does require the kinds of cooperation, the networking, the establishment of common ideals, causes, activities, given the technological advances that have come, that have made us so much an interconnected world in so many ways. And so being a part of what's going on here, to be able to achieve this is something that's very exciting. When it comes to Europe and Africa, as you well know, there's a long historical relationship. And even though as the independence of Africa sort of made Africa much stronger to take over the affairs of itself, to be able to take full responsibility for its own development. And as friendships expanded, national friendships and diplomatic relationships, you might say that that long historical relationship perhaps may have waned a little bit over time. But today I think the complexities of the world say that there's now a reason why there must be a coming together. The School of Transnational Governance play a very pivotal role in this regard.
So when you were credited for some of the amazing progress during your presidency in Liberia, like for example the enormous drop in infant mortality, you also gave credit to the international support that your country received. But what does aid mean for recipient countries when they are on the global stage, and how do you see this issue develop in the years ahead?
I can say to you, based on the Liberian experience, given that when I assumed the leadership of our country, we were in a very, very difficult situation because we were facing the consequences of almost 2 decades of conflict. That meant infrastructure destroyed, an economy that had virtually collapsed, no functioning institutions. And so we had to reach out. We had to reestablish relationships with multilateral institutions. We had to reestablish our bilateral relationships. And even though we had to put into place our own agenda to be able to increase the level of our own domestic resources, but we knew that we would never reach the level of being able to address the many things, the reconstruction needs that we faced. And so international cooperation for us became a very, very big thing. And with these, we were able then not only to build these relationships, but to establish the means of support, technical, financial, and to bring them together. And as a result, we had great successes in my first term and the early years of my presidency, where our rate of growth, became one of the highest ones in Africa in those initial years. We were able to address most of our reconstruction needs and start a whole program of reinventing ourselves, so to speak. Of course, we had problems.
Yes.
After that, we faced the difficult thing of Ebola. Yeah. And of course, everything slowed. Most of our work that was ongoing had to stop. Many of the technical people left the country out of fear. Our own doctors and nurses were dying, and our own people were running. And so, but once again, international cooperation became such a pivotal asset to us being to address this dreadful disease, because we had support from many nations. We had many of our own African nations gave us support. Some of the young people from Africa came and joined our young people to be able to address it and to be able to help. So we were able to solve our Ebola crisis in what was felt to be record time, given that we had beat the prediction that had been made about how many people would die. But we still lost over 4,000 of our citizens. And the other two countries also lost thousands of their citizens. Today, anyway, because of that support, we can say that we now have a much stronger national health system. And I believe because of that experience of ourselves and our two neighboring countries, finally we got research on developing the vaccines for this. And today some couple of vaccines have been tested, and some of them are now proven to be successful in preventing the disease.
So I would like to talk to you also about a few issues which are often in the news currently. Let's talk, for example, about climate change. You have talked about this issue in public several times, and it's often the poorest and most vulnerable people that are threatened by climate change, those people who do not have the means to get out of harm's way. How do you think that policymakers should make sure that these poorest and most vulnerable people are and remain at the heart of climate action?
Well, a lot are going to depend upon national policies. First of all, there's not yet in many of our nations, particularly poor nations, a full recognition of the consequences of climate change. In many of our African countries, in much of Africa, you might say, and maybe other developing nations as well, we have been the least to have contributed, to the situation that has now led us to these grave global climate change. But we get affected the most because our changing weather patterns, farming systems, the floods and all the things, the natural disasters that we face, with not the means to address them because of our capacity issue, because of our infrastructure, because of our ability, says that there has to be more, not attention from us, as important as that is, but also a recognition on the part of the developed countries that they have benefited, from the fact that we were able to be the ones to protect the environment, because we preserved our forests, we preserved our natural resources. And so we did. And so now it's time to find a way for full cooperation to be addressed this on a global stage. No one country will be able to handle this. I also think there's stronger recognition now of the impact on development that climate change is taking. And when you see a young Swedish lady leading a millions around the world to go to the streets, to call to policymakers, to call to the global leaders, to be able to act, then you know really that it's beginning to strike home that this is time that we all do something about it.
And with you mentioning Greta, I think it's the right moment to talk about an issue which is very close to your heart, and you are an example for women in Africa and beyond, across the world. Recently you said on Twitter, women are already strong. It's about changing the perception of how the world perceives this strength. How far do you think the world has come in terms of women's rights and gender equality?
The world has made progress, but come a long way. It will take, at the current pace of expanding women leadership, it would take almost 100 years to achieve the full gender parity that we all talk about. Progress is significant, no doubt. Recognition of the need to recognize the value of women, the role women play, the contribution women can make to national development, yes, is much improved. But the pace is too slow, particularly in our farming systems in Africa. It's women who do the farming, who do the marketing, who do the storage to feed the nation. In our school systems and our health systems, the larger number of workers are likely to be women. But as you go up and you reach the level of leadership, and you reach the level of decision making, and you reach the level of policy formulation, whether you're dealing with political systems, or whether you're dealing with civil society organizations, whether you're dealing with corporate bodies, as you go up, you can see at the pyramid then increasingly, women are left behind and the men ascend. Yeah. And so this is why we've got to address the leadership issue. And that's something that, I am planning to do something I can. I'm not going to make big changes in the world with any small effort or initiative that I take. But I certainly intend to do that, to be able to network among women, to be able to identify women that have strong leadership potential, that have made commitment, to be able to take the risks of standing up, either to compete or to take a long journey toward leadership, and to see how they can benefit from some of us who have been lucky enough to have advanced and can share our experiences with them, and see if we can create a larger number that can move up this ladder, can move up this, to be able to see it. But we can't do it. Let me say this though: women can't do it alone. We need the men. Absolutely. Men have to break the stereotypes out of their minds. Men have wives, they have daughters, and we expect them to be a part of this movement. That they must recognize the value of women. They must stand to help to support initiatives and efforts and programs and policies that demand changes to be able to accord women the equity and equal opportunity that they've long missed.
I agree. We need more male feminists for sure. So let's talk for a moment about how leaders actually are created, and maybe to start with a personal experience of yours. You, as a young mother, left your home country of Liberia to go to the US to study at Harvard. What did that experience mean to you?
Well, it's a very difficult decision for any woman to make, to pursue a professional goal and to have young children, who are left behind. But the decision sometimes has to be made not only in the interests of the woman, but in the interests of the children, to make sure that you acquire the education, the capacity, the means to be able to become a professional and to use the attributes of professionalism to be able to give them the kind of support and knowledge that they need. We're a little bit fortunate in Africa. You know, we have a system of parental support, and so mothers take care of children and provide a little bit of space for women to pursue their educational goals through those conventional systems. But increasingly, women are finding the way, and we now have what I call enlightened men who now accept the fact that some responsibility of taking care of the home and children also belongs to them. And if they've been lucky to achieve an education and to acquire their professional goals, that their wives who desire and who should desire to do the same. And you think about, I know today the daughters are very clear that they want equity, very clear that they are going to demand the kind of change that enables them to be a good mother and a good wife on the one hand, and to be a good professional on the other hand.
So, at the School of Transnational Governance, African students will study alongside people from all different continents. How important do you think it is for Africa's leaders of tomorrow to be exposed to such an international context?
Absolutely critical. The world is too interconnected for one not to appreciate the value of diversity in culture, in religion, to understand the diversity in history, and to be able to use that as a means of broadening your own perspective, broadening your capacity, broadening the kind of knowledge and relationship that you get from this intermingling, this interconnection of people coming, you know, from different areas, different lands, and so any school that encourages, any institution that promotes this kind of diversity is one that's going to see those who leave their institutes have a much better chance to be able to have opportunities in their own professional life, in their own goals that they've achieved. So, and I think you'll see more and more of that, where even in Africa, where universities tend to have, you know, only people from the countries. That's changing very much.
And at the start of our conversation, you talked about our changing, interconnected world, which also means that the leaders of tomorrow will need a broad set of skills to be different leaders, to deal with the challenges that the future poses. Could you describe a few of the skills you think are going to be important for the leaders of our future?
Technology tells us that we have to know how to access knowledge through those available types of things. You've got to be able to use all the modern means of, you know, computers, and now we have intelligence, intelligence. What do you call it? Artificial intelligence, AI. We got to understand how it works and how we fit our own daily responsibility and daily professional work into that. so that we continue to achieve the goals that we set for ourselves. And it doesn't come unless one is participating in all the opportunities of broadening your knowledge, broadening your intelligence, broadening your capacity to be able to deal with this. Today I took a while to say, do Twitter, because there was a time when I said, oh, come on, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all. Oh, no, I don't want to, but I have no choice. If I want to know what's going on in the world out there, what women are doing to promote things, what's happening with the data on development progress, the statistics that come from that, the reports, the books that are being produced on every subject in every country by so many people that provide you this broad knowledge. If you're not preparing yourself to be able to access what is out there, then what you do is you constrain yourself in your ability to achieve at the highest level of the goals that you have set.
So that is already an inspiring message, I think, to the youth. But if there would be one thing to conclude this conversation, if you could give one key message to African youth, people who maybe would like to go and study abroad and then come back to their home country, make a difference, what is the motivational message you would like to give them?
The first thing is to determine your goal and have the self-confidence that you have the capacity to achieve that goal. Once you have that, and then you take all the challenges that you will face and stay the course toward getting as much knowledge that you can to achieve that goal, knowing that there are going to be difficulties. But I think if you stay focused on that goal and continue to expand your capacity, and you bring to it that self-assurance, that you are what you are and can make it. I hope everyone has that kind of strong belief in themselves and belief in what they want to be, and are willing to make the sacrifice through knowledge earning to be able to achieve that.
That's a beautiful message. Thank you, Madam, for your time, and this conversation. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.